I'm going to be walking you through how to read the tarot specifically through the lens of connecting to your ancestors. My paradigm is psychological, where I propose that what you're doing isn't woo-woo at all, but is retrieval of a genetic memory you inherited from those ancestors at the cellular level. When you make a memory, a group of neurons are encoded with that memory. Basically, a little pathway in your brain is built. When you recall that conscious memory, you're retracing that pathway you previously built or encoded in your neurons, thereby re-triggering activation of that synapses.
You can do the same thing with your unconscious memory you inherited from your ancestors at that cellular level. A pathway was built a long, long time ago by your ancestor that got etched into the genes you inherited from that ancestor. But you don't normally have access to that pathway. It's hard to access because it's not conscious, not even subconscious memory. So we need a catalyst, such as an altered state of consciousness, to reactivate those ensembles of neurons or genetic memory. The tarot is just such a catalyst.
Let's start with an overview of the tarot spread I've found to be the most effective, most powerful, most versatile, and user-friendly for connecting to your ancestors. It is kind of a big multi-card spread, but you will be working through the cards step by step, so it's going to be digestible because you're taking it in parts, bite size. I promise it's a lot easier than it looks. From the two cards you'll pull that are starred on screen, you'll choose between them just one of those two and move it over to form a new ensemble. You'll have a handout to read, but to reinforce the pathways of memory in your mind, I'll also walk you through the spread by narration. The first intention is to connect with a matriarch or a patriarch. The first card will identify the ancestor who is coming through. Then you're going to have a question and answer conversation with this ancestor and get some information. The second ancestral connection is a recently departed, or that's the intention you're going to be setting. This is a relative close to you who watches over you, who you would have known in the living flesh, or who would have known you in the living flesh. I say that because it could be an ancestor who died when you were very young, so your conscious memory might not recall this person, but you did have direct interaction with him or her. Next, you'll choose one of these two connections to continue on with. Set that card over as your significator or ancestor card. This is so you can have an interactive conversation now with this spirit. Turn your deck face up and choose a card that represents what you want to say to him or her. By the way, totally okay to pull a second deck, a full deck, and choose from that one to set into your spread. Totally okay to work with multiple decks for this single process. Set that card you've chosen into place. As you do this, you are conversing with that spirit, this ancestor of yours. Then shuffle your cards, again, remaining deck or work with multiple decks, up to you, and seek out this ancestor's response to what you said. That third card is the ancestor's response, reply, or answer to your chosen card.
Quick note to adoptees. For that second ancestor or blood relative you pull, so maybe you didn't ever meet the relative in the living flesh, but it would have been a relative with a strong psychic bond to you who would have psychically known about you, whether or not they themselves are even aware. Think grandmother, dead sister, dead father, great-grandfather, that kind of thing.
I'm going to share an actual reading I did for myself. The first to come through was my maternal grandfather. His life was marked by poverty, defined by poverty, and so when choosing a card to identify his life, it would have been the Five of Pentacles. But that second card, the King of Wands, is him telling me what his life was like. He wasn't about to go all poor me and show his negative sides to his granddaughter. No, he's going to present himself as the King of Wands. No matter how poor the family was, he was the patriarch. He was also creative, full of entrepreneurial spirit. Now, what I inherited from him, that Four of Swords, is actually my frail physical health. Have your hand out with the references to card positions in front of you as we go through this case study. It'll help. These next three cards get to the purpose for contacting this ancestral spirit. I'm seeking insights for helping me navigate the road ahead. That Two of Swords is him telling me what he most wishes for our legacy. Here you probably need some personal context. He's telling me to go for both of my dreams. Many cultures believe the dead can see far into the future. So, operating on that premise, one of the prompts here is to ask the dead relative to see farther into the future for you. And that's what this Knight of Cups card is all about. This one, I believe, predicted the birth of my Spirit Keepers Tarot deck. This reading was done back in 2018. Final card here, chatting with my maternal grandfather. What can I do to honor you? The Eight of Wands to me here is continued communication. Grandpa wants to stay in touch.
I want to talk a bit about that part where I said the dead can see the future. Let me explain my train of thought. It's not even that woo-woo. You know, big data, right? The more information and data you can input, the more accurate of a projection or prediction you can generate. That's in terms of computing. So now making it a little bit woo, the dead see so much more than we can see. They know so much more. They have more data. Because they have more data per metaphysical theory, they can give advice that feels predictive. It seems like they know the future.
Continuing on with my reading, the second person I chatted with was my paternal grandmother. So now this is on my father's side of the family. She passed very recently, whereas I never met my maternal grandfather. He died long before I was born. He died when my mother was in high school. Opposite my grandpa, my father's mom came from money, lots of it. But unlike grandpa, who was poor but felt rich, my grandmother was rich but lived a very trapped, difficult life. If this card comes up in this type of mediumship reading, I might wonder whether there's messages of abuse coming through. As for what I inherited from my grandma, I would say that Knight of Wands is indicative of a free spirit, someone a bit eccentric with very eclectic passions. Next, I'm going to consult Grandma for some advice. She wants, well, to be kind of literal here, justice. I also believe this is a message about how she wants our family to deal with the complex estate and inheritance issue. But that's getting a wee bit personal. In terms of what she sees for my future, promotion and achieving a leadership or executive role. And what can I do to honor her? Live my best life is how I read that. Next, you're going to choose which of the two spirits to continue your conversation with. I'm going to go with Grandma. You move the identifier card over to form a new column to the right.
This is your chance to have a Q&A or to converse with the ancestor. What's something you want to say to this ancestor or ask this ancestor?
After you've shifted over the Ancestor Identifier card to become the significator, go through your deck of cards and select one card that best expresses what it is you want to convey to your ancestor or expresses the question you want to ask this spirit.
I don't know how much you know about Asian culture, but we never say I love you. That's just not a thing. I have never, literally never heard either one of my parents say those words to me or any of my sisters verbatim. They say, I'm proud of you, or you are such a precious daughter. I've even heard I would die for you before, which is melodramatic, but I love you. Never. My maternal grandmother, who recently died and who I did know all my life growing up, was someone I never got the chance to say, I love you to. So now, given the chance, that is the one thing, the one message I wanted to convey to her.
So I went with the Two of Cups to express I love you to Grandma. You are then going to pull a card, and that card will be the spirit's response. To my message of I love you, here's what my Asian grandmother said back: study hard, work hard, and keep working hard.
A couple of pointers. First, which deck you're using matters a lot. Take notes. Choose your deck or decks carefully because how powerful or expansive your reading is capable of being is contingent on how versatile your deck is. An all-purpose workhorse deck is perfect here, such as the Rider-Waite-Smith or the Thoth. For me, I would use my own deck, the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, because I designed the SKT specifically, precisely to do this kind of heavy mediumship, altered state type of work. But remember this, different strokes for different folks. A specific deck that works great for me might not work great for you, and your favorite all-time workhorse deck might be a dud in my hands. So you have to know yourself. At the same time, you bring energy and power too. So a powerful psychic medium could literally read cardboard, you know what I mean? In those cases, sure, any deck will do because you're overriding all of the deck's inherent energies with your own psychic abilities.
Let's walk through a case study of an actual client of mine who we will call Sam. The dominant ancestor coming through was identified by the Three of Swords, which is spirit of the bereaved in my tarot deck. Remember, this is not about what this person's life was like, because that's the next card. This is answering who. Who is this person? I read the cards very, very literally here, as in literally who is pictured, what's going on. The masculine energy of the swords suit, however, might indicate that it's the paternal lineage. This is someone who died with many regrets, who lost someone she loved. I am going with a she here because of the literal imagery on the card, like how Isis lost Horus. This woman lost someone she loved deeply. The next card I pulled was the Dark Horse, or Seven of Wands reversed. I think she's trying to tell me something about her death now. Rather than talk about her life, she's using the opportunity of this card position to tell me about her death because she feels that's more important for Sam to know. This is about her immune system fighting something but being defeated, losing that fight, which brought about her death. She died of some kind of virus or cancer. What has Sam inherited from this ancestor? Ace of Swords. Sam's child is the reincarnation of this ancestor, a boy or someone who presents as male or someone with more of what society would deem masculine assertive qualities.
Two more pointers. The first is a comment on gender. As you develop your mediumship abilities, you'll need to figure out how information about gender or sexuality comes to you. For me, I read energy. So an example is sometimes my energy comes across as masculine, even though, look at me. So if you realize you're one of those who read energy, then if you get a masculine energy, be careful. The actual physical person could look like me. You know what I'm saying? But if your psychic eye sees physical appearances, then that's a different process. Then you're not reading energy. Your psychic eye is seeing something clairvoyantly. So then if something presents as masculine, the physical body is probably masculine. To be honest, this is trial and error. You're just going to have to be wrong a couple of times or right for you to realize whether you're reading energy or seeing physical appearances psychically. Second point, when we say mediumship is something that develops with time, one thing we mean by that is the development of confidence. Have you ever played those multiple choice trivia games where you are 70% sure you know the answer? Like you can intuit you know this from somewhere, so you've guessed correctly in your head already, but you're really insecure and you're dithering back and forth between different choices, and then you let your own uncertainty get the better of you, so you choose wrong. But then once the right answer is revealed to you, you're like, I knew that. That's lack of confidence that caused you to be wrong. If you were confident enough with your gut feeling, you would have been spot on. With mediumship development, you have to learn how to be confident with that intuitive first choice.
The next part is a three-question Q&A with the spirit. These are the three questions I feel like most people want to know when they make ancestral contact. What do you most wish for our legacy? This female wants Sam and progeny to do as they will, to not follow tradition, not follow protocol, not feel moral obligations, but to feel free to pursue what it is they most personally desire. What can you tell about what is in Sam's future? Redemption or reclamation. Being able to purify something toxic in the family line. Hold that thought. I'll explain in a second. The third card, Nine of Wands, which in the SKT deck is the malaise. I see intergenerational wounds, the threat of Sam repeating the cycle of pain and suffering that this ancestor went through, and she is trying to stop Sam from repeating that cycle. She wants Sam to stop doing something, to block something, so that she can avoid the malaise. Here I see the Nine of Scepters and the earlier Seven of Scepters reversed as being related to each other. The primary purpose for this ancestor to come through right now to Sam is because she's trying to stop Sam from repeating this ancestor's own mistakes, and I think it could be health related. She wants Sam to be a little more proactive and on top of her physical health. Initially, the intent was to invite to the table a second ancestor to chat with, but the same one came through. She's taking up the whole table, basically. The Lover's card connects to the earlier message we got from the bereaved. She's not done with me or Sam quite yet. I haven't given her the full chance to say all that she wants to say, apparently. The next card, the defector, in the narrowly tailored context of this card position, tells me she left something behind and regrets it. The rest of her life was defined by that regret. Continuing on, look at the synchronicity and parallel between the Six of Chalices here and Key 6, the Lover's card. The story of Sam's life reads eerily similar to this ancestor's life story, and that's why she has taken on such a keen interest in Sam. This next card position gives this spirit more opportunity to get her message across. Again, she is emphasizing the point to Sam that she wants Sam to end a cycle. That way, Sam's child, the reincarnation of this spirit, won't repeat some mistake that Sam is on the path of making or has already made. As we continue on, this spirit wants Sam to change. In the SKT, the Two of Orbs takes on a more Thoth meaning, so it's designated as the Lord of Change. The Nocturne is about enduring through a dark night of the soul and changing as a result. What can Sam do to honor this ancestor? I mean, can this spirit be any more clear and consistent with her message here? This reading reads like a broken record. Archangel of Healing.
Reincarnation. I kind of just dropped that on you as if, yeah, everybody believes this is real. My worldview is very much informed and premised on the belief in reincarnation. So for me, I can't and I don't separate that out from my mediumship or spirit work. Instead, I just make it clear in my statements of purpose to prospective clients that this is the belief system I'm operating under. So if that doesn't align with them, that's something for them to consider before choosing me as their medium or conduit, right? In terms of how you want to practice professionally, I think this is a call you have to make. Do you want to stay all-purpose and all-inclusive of every single belief system, or are you going to define yourself in a narrow way and just put that disclaimer up front so people know what they're getting into when they book a reading with you?
Continuing on with Sam's reading, where normally I would invite two ancestor spirits to chat with us, here one very powerful, determined spirit showed up in both slots. I simply opted to go with the Three of Swords as the significator card and shifted it over to that third column. I then asked Sam if there's anything she'd like to say to this spirit or ask this ancestor. Does she have a specific question she would like me to ask? Sam wants to know about her son's future career path. You will then cycle through your deck of cards to find one card that best expresses Sam's question or your client's message or intention. I'm using an entirely separate additional full deck, and in this case, the Montaigne Tarot. The Artisan card I felt best conveys Sam's question. I infuse it with the specific phrasing of her question as I set it into place on my reading table. We then return to my SKT deck, the one I've been working with, to retrieve the spirit's response. We get the Six of Scepters, or Six of Wands, the champion. Not much for Sam to worry about here. Her son is going to do just fine in life. Let's go over how you'll be interpreting who is coming through by way of a tarot card. You're going to be essentially informed by what you know to be the card's meaning, but let go of them. Be more literal. Like, literally, what do you see pictured on the card, and how might that be a representation or even replica of something from that ancestor's life? The Two of Cups, if it triggers you in a certain way in the moment, could mean that the spirit was a doctor or nurse, whereas the Ten of Cups, rather than the Two of Cups, is about being happily married or even indicating to you a really big family. Five of Pentacles, suffered from poverty. Eight of Pentacles, I was a craftsman, or maybe it's about being a laborer or part of the working class. The Empress might be indicating someone who defines her life by her role as a mother or caretaker. Five of Swords might show a soldier if you're working with the Rider-Waite-Smith. Ten of Wands might be a message about being a farmer or working in agriculture. Six of Cups is about leaving your home country, someone who was a migrant or immigrant. The Hanged Man might show persecution. Wheel of Fortune is the spirit conveying to you the good life. Four of Swords could indicate a life defined by terminal illness or disability. An ace, such as the Ace of Wands, might be the spirit trying to tell you they were the first to do something, first in the family too, and then use your psychic reach to fill in the blank. Four of Wands, I was happily married, or maybe I was part of nobility.
Take a moment to think about how you would identify yourself. Like, if I asked you these same questions that are card positions in our reading spread, how would you respond? If you had to define your entire life in one single tarot card, how would you do it? That will give you some sense of how the spirit is going to be using your tarot cards to answer the question.
On screen, you're going to see a reference table to help you maintain context on how ancestral spirits communicate. If your ancestor spirit is of a different ethnicity or race than you are, for example, that might be the first thing the spirit goes to in terms of self-identifier. Just think logically about this. In a room full of white people, often my first identifier is I'm Asian, but in a room full of Asian people, I'm not going to announce that I'm Asian. If I see that you're a lawyer, that might be my first go-to identifier if and when chatting with you. Oh my God, I'm a lawyer too. So if there is something you and this ancestor share, which is a really neat thing to share, the ancestor might go to that as the main identifier. If there was really notable work that this spirit accomplished, that work might be the identifier. One of the things I like to do is keep this reference table up when you do this type of reading. When you get a card, glance over at this reference table. It helps to generate ideas as to what that card in front of you is trying to say. And remember, a single card can express multiple identifiers. The Page of Cups can be the spirit saying, I was an artist. Also, I enjoyed fishing. Also, I lived by the sea. The Death card can be telling you, I was a casualty of war. Also, it was the Crusades. Remember that not just for the ancestral readings, but also for your past life readings as well. The Knight of Swords is your ancestor saying, I was male from your father's side of the family, and like you, I had this impetuous, shoot first, ask questions later type of personality, and I'm here to tell you how this got me in trouble and what you need to learn. If a card like the Six of Pentacles shows up, take a moment of pause to sense the energies around you. How do you feel? What are your impulses right now? Because depending on your impulses and the energies coming through, maybe this says, I was a humanitarian, I worked for a nonprofit, or maybe totally different, this card's message in the moment is saying to you, I was on social welfare. You need to read the room. In this type of mediumship reading, I find that the cards come across, like I keep saying, a lot more literally than they would in a more typical tarot reading. The Tower card, for example, might not be your common approach Tower card meaning, but instead it's the spirit utilizing the imagery here to tell you that he or she lived in a stone structure. Or maybe it's trying to tell you about an earthquake, terrible fire, or natural disaster. The Two of Swords could be the spirit trying to show you life on an island, or living by the coast, or geographically somewhere by a large major body of water. Also, consider how the card you see in the reading makes you feel. Lean into that emotional value. For example, across the screen, you see the narrative of 6 cards, 2 sets in our reading spread for 1 spirit contact. Overall, collectively, what emotions come through for you? Maybe these 6 cards in totality make you feel a young, youthful energy, but agitated, restless, yet it's a very powerful, strong memory. Also think about what event, lifestyle, or occupation is being indicated in the card. 4 of Swords could show someone bedridden. The World card might be the spirit trying to tell you they're cosmopolitan. The 10 of Swords is the spirit communicating an event where they were blindsided or about a terrible fall or tragedy. The 7 of Wands is someone telling you they were a rebel, a resistance fighter, someone who was part of an uprising. There are many facets of these cards, and don't forget that. The 10 of Swords, for example, might be the spirit trying to communicate to you that they were a battlefield surgeon. The 4 of Swords could mean that the spirit died early in life where his parents had to bury their child. Why even access your ancestral memory? These psychic insights into where you came from can help you gain a better sense of who you are and where you're going, or where you should prevent yourself from going. Ancestor readings for clients, if you're a professional tarot reader, will bring an enormous wealth of insights into life path, life purpose, and deeper motivations to the querent. There's something profound about acknowledging the circle of life, of understanding that you're just carrying the torch for a short leg of the greater marathon. I find that ancestors have a vested interest in your well being, so they're going to give better life advice, and no one is as direct and honest with you as an ancestor. Also, the more you do these types of readings and access genetic memory, the more you realize the importance of what it is you're encoding into your genes and passing on. So you yourself become more mindful, more thoughtful of your lifestyle. I also appreciate the sense of closure that these types of mediumship readings offer. One way I find to be powerful and accurate in tarot mediumship is to read indications by element. In terms of binary identification, a card associated with the element water might be trying to tell you there are socialized, feminine, or introspective qualities going on. A swords card associated with air can relate to a temperate climate. So a card like the Five of Swords, while communicating to you some challenges in life, difficulties faced, even disappointments, it might also be be showing you where all of that is happening, somewhere with a temperate climate like the New England region of the United States or Inner Mongolia. Read the room, read the energies psychically to identify which it is. Four of discs or coins or pentacles might be conveying information about assets or personal economics. A few other considerations when interpreting cards in a mediumship reading. I do rely more heavily on numerology and astrology. Also, focus on land formations in the imagery of the cards. Maybe the spirit is using that card to convey information to you just because to the spirit that card pictures a mountain and she used to live on a mountain. And out of these 78 cards in the deck you have chosen to work with, that happens to be the card that the spirit can best communicate to you. I used to live on a mountain. Look at what actions the people pictured in the card are engaged in. Maybe that mimics a lifestyle or event in the spirit's life, or the card evokes a particular culture. When we get into past life readings, we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'll give you my own examples. A wands card, for me, the way I've programmed and connected to the tarot architecture, is going to convey Europe or the Mediterranean region, but this also encompasses the northernmost part of Africa. A cups card indicates, to me, the Americas. And now, whether that's North America or South America, I'm going to have to read the room, tap in with your psychic muscles and read the energies. Swords energy, for me, if I'm reading it for geography and culture, is Asia. With discs or pentacles, this will be the middle and southern parts of Africa, Oceania, Polynesia, Australia, the South Pacific.
In the next video segment, my voice is going to guide you through a tarot reading in which I hope we can induce a state of extraordinary calm for you so that you can tap into your genetic memory and do your first ancestral reading for yourself.